My name is Dr. Emma Chin, and 6 months ago, I experienced the kind of betrayal you wouldn't expect even from a stranger, let alone your own mother. As I lay unconscious in a hospital bed, fighting for my life, my mother made decisions that not only shattered my trust, but left me utterly broken. To understand the depth of her betrayal, let me take you back to the beginning. I've always been the responsible one in my family, the one who worked tirelessly to secure a better future. My younger sister, Lisa, was the complete opposite, a carefree spirit who breezed through life with little regard for responsibility. While she spent her college years hopping from one party to the next, funded by our parents' generosity, I poured every ounce of energy into building a career in medicine. By the age of 32, I was a successful physician with my own private practice, a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood, and a comfortable financial cushion. My father passed away when I was in medical school, and I made it my duty to support my mother and Lisa. Every month, I sent them money, even though my mother never missed an opportunity to criticize my lifestyle. "When are you going to find a husband?" she'd ask during our weekly dinners. "Lisa already has 3 marriage proposals, and she's 5 years younger than you." Her words stung, but I'd learned to ignore the endless comparisons. Lisa was the golden child, the pretty, charming one who deserved the world handed to her on a silver platter. I, on the other hand, found solace in my work, dedicating myself to my patients and the life I'd built with my own hands. That life came to a crashing halt on the night of March 15th. It was late, and I was driving home after performing an emergency surgery. The roads were slick from rain, and as I approached an intersection, a drunk driver ran a red light. The last thing I remember was the blinding glare of headlights and the screech of tires. Then darkness. When I woke up 6 months later, I was in a hospital bed, my body frail and my mind clouded. My nurse, Maria, was the first face I saw, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. "Dr. Chin, you're awake," she said gently. "Let me call the doctor." But before she could, I rasped out the first question that came to mind. "My house, my things, what happened?" Her face fell, and dread crept over me. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Your mother had power of attorney while you were unconscious. She sold everything." The words hit me like a physical blow. My mother sold everything? Maria explained that during my coma, my mother had liquidated all my assets, my house, my investments, even my savings. Everything I had worked so hard to build was gone. "Why?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "She told everyone you wouldn't survive," Maria said, hesitating before continuing. "The doctors were optimistic, but she insisted on settling your affairs quickly." Before I could process the enormity of what she was saying, my mother and Lisa walked into the room. They didn't look relieved or overjoyed to see me awake. Instead, they looked annoyed, angry even. "Oh, so you're finally awake," my mother said, her tone icy. "We thought you weren't going to make it, so we had to make arrangements." "Arrangements?" I repeated, struggling to sit up. "You sold my house. Where's the money?" Lisa smirked, holding up her left hand to flaunt a massive diamond ring. "Mom gave it to me. I'm getting married next month, and we needed the money for the wedding. Plus, we put a down payment on a mansion. It's not like you were using it." My chest tightened as the realization set in. They had taken everything, my home, my savings, my security, while I lay unconscious. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. My mother's response sent chills through me. "You were as good as dead to us," she said matter-of-factly. "You were always too busy with work to care about your family. At least this way, the money went to someone who values family." My anger surged. "You'll regret this," I said, my voice steady despite the tears. "What you did wasn't just cruel. It was illegal." Lisa laughed mockingly. "Prove it," she said. "Mom had power of attorney, and everything was perfectly legal. Face it, sis, you've lost everything." They left me alone after that, smug and satisfied. But in their greed, they had made a fatal mistake. They underestimated me. That night, as I lay in the hospital bed, I began to plan. Maria, who had witnessed the entire exchange, brought me my phone and helped me make a series of calls. First to my bank, then to my lawyer, and finally to an old friend from medical school. who now worked for the state medical board. Over the following weeks, as I underwent grueling physical therapy to rebuild my strength, I pieced together the extent of their betrayal. They had sold my house far below market value to a friend of Lisa's, pocketing extra money under the table. They had destroyed sensitive medical records from my home office, violating healthcare privacy laws. Worst of all, they had forged my signature on several documents, confident that I would never wake up to uncover their crimes. Their arrogance didn't stop there. Lisa posted photos on social media flaunting her shopping trips, captioning them with, "Thanks, sis, for the early inheritance." My mother boasted about Lisa's new mansion, proudly declaring how she had secured her daughter's future. Every post, every caption, every smug comment became evidence in my growing case against them. They thought they had won, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. I documented everything. With each new revelation of my family's betrayal, my lawyer crafted an airtight case, meticulously piecing together the mountain of evidence against them. But as satisfying as legal justice might be, I knew it wouldn't be enough. They needed to learn a lesson they would never forget, and Lisa's upcoming wedding presented the perfect opportunity. While I worked to rebuild my strength through grueling physical therapy, I also began to rebuild my network. My former patients, many of whom held significant influence in the city, were appalled to hear of my situation. Offers of help poured in. A prominent businessman provided me with a guest house to stay in. A private investigator, whose life I had once saved during a medical emergency, volunteered to dig deeper into the fraudulent sale of my home. Meanwhile, my mother and Lisa were oblivious, too consumed with extravagant wedding preparations to notice my quiet maneuvers. They believed they had won, that I was weak, defeated, and incapable of fighting back. What they didn't realize was that when someone has nothing left to lose, they become a force to be reckoned with. I would show them that the greatest strength often rises from the ashes of devastation. Revenge, I decided, is best served cold. And at a wedding, the day of reckoning, Lisa's wedding day arrived, a grandiose affair set in the city's most exclusive venue. I wasn't invited, of course. That didn't matter. Every detail had been planned meticulously, and at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, the first wave of consequences arrived. From across the street, I watched as police officers and federal agents descended on the venue, warrants in hand. The chaos that ensued was almost poetic. Guests were already arriving, dressed in their finest when the commotion began. I could hear my mother's shrill voice above the murmurs of the crowd. "You can't do this. This is my daughter's wedding," she protested, but her words held no sway. By 2 p.m. Lisa, still clad in her intricate white wedding gown, was being led out in handcuffs, mascara streaking down her tear-stained face. My mother followed closely behind, screaming at the officers and frantically attempting to justify their actions. The look on their faces when they saw me standing calmly across the street, dressed impeccably in a designer suit, was worth every moment of suffering they had caused. "Did you really think you'd get away with it?" I said, stepping forward, my voice steady and cold. "That I'd simply disappear and let you enjoy your stolen wealth? You vindictive witch." Lisa spat, her voice laced with venom. "You ruined my wedding." I smiled, the kind of smile that cuts to the bone. "No, dear sister. You ruined it the moment you stole from a coma patient. And today, your wedding isn't the only thing you've lost." Right on cue, more officers arrived at Lisa's so-called dream mansion, the one purchased with my money. The fraudulent property sale had been uncovered, and everything, down to the last piece of stolen furniture, was being seized as evidence. Their perfect little world was crumbling, and I made sure to be there for every agonizing moment of its collapse. But I wasn't done. The truth revealed. As the guests stood frozen in shock, I turned to address them. Many were members of my mother's high society circle, people she had worked tirelessly to impress. They deserved to know the truth. "I apologize for the interruption," I began, my voice carrying across the courtyard. "But I thought you all should know exactly what kind of people you're here to celebrate today." While I lay unconscious in a hospital bed, fighting for my life, these two women, my own mother and sister, robbed me of everything I owned. A hush fell over the crowd as I continued, detailing the depths of their betrayal. They sold my house for far below its value, pocketed the difference, and emptied my bank accounts. They destroyed sensitive medical records, putting hundreds of my patients at risk. And they celebrated my supposed death, using the money to fund this lavish wedding. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Well, surprise. I survived. And today, justice has finally arrived. My mother, unhinged with fury, lunged at me, but the officers held her back. You ungrateful child, she screamed. After everything we've done for you. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the stunned silence. Everything you've done? Like leaving me homeless and penniless while I lay in a coma? Like forging my signature and claiming I was dead so you could steal my inheritance? Don't worry. Everything you've done will be thoroughly addressed in court. Justice served. The investigation that followed uncovered even more crimes than I had initially realized. Not only had they stolen from me, but they had also committed insurance fraud by falsely claiming death benefits. Their web of lies unraveled quickly under scrutiny, and the consequences were swift. Both my mother and Lisa were sentenced to significant prison time. Their ill-gotten gains, including the mansion, luxury cars, and jewelry, were confiscated. Even the wedding venue, paid for with my stolen money, was seized. The friend who had helped them facilitate the fraudulent property sale faced charges as well. One by one, every pillar of their deceit crumbled, leaving nothing but the hollow shell of their arrogance. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. After months of legal proceedings, my house was returned to me. Though it took time to sort out the paperwork, the victory was well worth the wait. My medical practice reopened, and many of my former patients returned, joined by new ones who had heard my story. The support from the community was overwhelming, and my practice thrived, stronger than ever. Moving forward, 3 months later, I established a foundation dedicated to helping families navigate the challenges of catastrophic illness and recovery. My experience had taught me that betrayal often comes from unexpected places, and I was determined to turn my pain into purpose. My mother and Lisa wrote to me from prison, pleading for forgiveness and financial help. I never responded. Some wounds cut too deep to heal, and some betrayals are beyond redemption. Looking back, I realized that losing everything had taught me the most important lesson. True wealth isn't measured in possessions, but in integrity, resilience, and justice. My mother and sister thought they had destroyed me. Instead, they made me stronger. Today, as I walk through the halls of my new medical practice, the plaque on the wall serves as a quiet reminder of my journey. Success, I've learned, is the ultimate revenge. And sometimes, the best way to show you can't be broken is to rise above, stronger and more determined than ever.